I would never have invaded Iraq. No thoughtful, reasonable president would ever have invaded Iraq. Anyone who knew or studied the history of our relationship with Iraq, the 11-year defense of the no-fly zone, shooting down Iraqi fighter pilots, blowing up Iraqi surface-to-air missile stations, the technologized slaughter of the Basra Highway, anyone who remembered those years thinking of a proud army's thirst for revenge would never have put Americans on the ground in Iraq. Anyone who knew Muslims would never have invaded Iraq, especially for a long-term occupation. Muslims hold a grudge to the fourth generation. They conduct feuds. Political assassination is a technique of war developed to an art form by Muslims. When Muslim families disagree, they don't go to court. They kill your family members to send a message. Your son is dead, they say. We killed him because you insulted us. This is a people who surrender themselves absolutely to a religion which tells them anyone who does not practice that religion is a second-class citizen or an enemy. It is not terribly unusual for a Muslim to kill a Christian or Jew simply because he is not a Muslim. They kill atheists because Muhammad is quoted as saying, "God hates the man who does not pray." When people celebrate by brandishing weapons, their culture is a defiant one. It does not easily recognize an authority imposed by outsiders. Our president is from Texas, yet the history of the Apache and the Comanche, the Yaqui and the Mescaleros have taught him nothing. If I were a president and I invaded Iraq, I could have done it better. When we invaded Germany in the closing months of World War II, we did not establish a coalition provisional authority, we established martial law. We did not bring Germans who had lived in the United States for 25 years to become the coalition government and write the Constitution. Generals and civilian governors assigned the Germans who knew how to manage the infrastructure to continue managing the infrastructure, regardless of their political affiliations. We occupied and secured military bases, the armories, the banks, the museums. We located everything of value as quickly as we could, and we put a guard on it. When we arrested prisoners, we put them in their own prisons, and they did not come out until the war was over and all their weapons were confiscated. We did not allow the German people to assemble, demonstrate, riot, commit acts of vandalism, possess weapons, or murder each other, because these acts are the means by which an invaded population tests the will of the invader. When the Allies invaded Germany, they made every effort to secure all weapons and all ammunition and all sources of money so that partisan forces could not arise in Germany. None of this was done in Iraq. And the Sunni, driven out of their jobs, raided 4 banks and the museums and sold the antiquities of Babylon to buy ammunition. They raided armories which were unguarded by any American soldier. Insurgents who were arrested were promptly released by Sunni judges for insufficient evidence at an average rate of 130 men per month. Very little effort was made to defend the Shia. An American general led an expedition of 2,000 men to capture or kill Muqtada al-Sadr. Just to make sure it would not be too easy, he announced his intentions to the media before leaving. All this convinced the Shia their best strategy was to arm and fight. I believe the invasion of Iraq was deliberately sabotaged. I believe the plan was to create a long-term, simmering rebellion, a problematic resistance, and this would provide the Bush administration with an excuse to remain in Iraq, to save and protect the Iraqi people, to defend democracy in Iraq, because Iraq sits on a sea of oil. So the invasion plan designed by Iraqi experts in the Pentagon over 11 long years after the Gulf War was scrapped. A new invasion plan was prepared, ignoring the important acts of securing the banks, the museums, and the armories, neglecting to establish martial law, allowing the right of habeas corpus to insurgents as if they lived in Cincinnati. We did not secure the armories for over 30 days. Instead, the Iraq invasion was an orchestrated media event. Hundreds of journalists were invited to see Saddam's statue being pulled down. Daily press kits were issued with videos of smart bombs blowing up bridges and buildings. Every effort was made to give the media a daily soundbite and a selection of videos. Imagine a doctor who comes to visit with you every day, smiling and repeating endlessly how perfectly the operation came off and how important it was to do it. But he never bothers to give you the antibiotic to kill the infection raging in your bowels. That is what the Bush administration did to Iraq. Again, if I were president, I would never have invaded Iraq, but Bush and Cheney have sabotaged us. They have launched this country on a path from which we cannot easily turn. They have exposed the ignorance of our leaders. They have exposed the smallness of our armed forces. Already China and Russia have signaled their contempt for the United States, both of them strutting on the world stage, defying us in the installation of anti-missile stations in Chechos, supporting Iran in the refinement of uranium to such an extent that Christian ministers now quote Ezekiel 38 and 39. The rapture is scheduled for next Monday. The United States must accomplish something in Iraq. We must find the leadership and the resources to defend the Kurds against the lunatics of the South, slowly removing our forces northward from the Sunni Triangle, perhaps negotiating with Muqtada al-Sadr to use his forces against the Sunni insurgents as we withdraw from Baghdad and the Triangle of Death. If we abandon Iraq, here is what will happen. China will invade Taiwan. And the 20 candidates who wish to be our president, I do not see one with the courage to defy our billionaires and enter into a conflict with China. When we fail to meet our commitment to defend our ally of 70 years, the United States will fail the international test of courage. That will put Japan on a war footing. Japan also has a treaty with the United States and Australia. This is not going to be much fun. And if we abandon Iraq, China will send 500,000 men to occupy Iraq in the way they have occupied Tibet, because Iraq sits on a sea of oil. American and European billionaires have invested all their money in the construction of the most modern and advanced plants and equipment, all in China. One of two things will happen. Either a Gandhi will rise up in some region of China and encourage the desperate Chinese to strike, agitate, and demand better wages, or the Chinese Communist government, seeking more power and more control, perhaps in response to the violent upheavals which roll across the face of that nation from time to time, will simply nationalize, one by one or all at once, all the new modern factories constructed by the tightwads who would not pay American and European wages. And if the insurance companies of the world find a way to weasel out of their policies, those tightwad billionaires will become overnight paupers. They will flood into the American job market. They will take still more jobs away from loyal Americans. So abandoning Iraq will bring a long nationwide recession. And if China is overconfident, war. We should cut our losses. We should consolidate our limited armed resources in the northern provinces of Iraq and defend the Kurds.